For centuries, there's been one name that just echoes through all of our myths and legends: Atlantis. You know the story: a lost continent, a super advanced civilization, just swallowed by the sea. But what if it's actually more than just a story? In this explainer, we're going to dive into what our sources say to explore the incredible narrative of a world that might have been, a chapter of history that just might be missing.
And that's really the question at the heart of all of this, isn't it? The history we're all taught in school feels so solid. This straight line from cavemen to the internet. But what if there are huge gaps in that timeline? Entire chapters that, if we found them, could rewrite absolutely everything we think we know about where we come from. So try to imagine a time. We're talking tens of thousands of years ago, a period of incredible peace, of heightened consciousness. Our sources call this the Golden Age of Atlantis, a civilization that supposedly thrived between 40,000 and 18,000 BC. They paint a picture of this near-perfect society that had reached a level of spiritual and technological advancement that's honestly hard for us to even wrap our heads around today.
So, let's start right there, in this supposed Golden Age. What did this civilization actually look like at its absolute peak? What kind of world did these Atlanteans build for themselves? Well, according to these narratives, the entire foundation of their society was a technology that sounds like it was ripped straight out of science fiction, a massive continent-wide crystal power grid. And this wasn't just for, turning on the lights. This was supposedly the engine that drove their entire civilization.
At the very heart of this grid was something called the Toa Ui stone, also known as the Great Crystal. Now, this was not just some big rock. It's described as a huge, multifaceted instrument. It was kept in this special domed building that could actually open up to the sky, letting it soak up energy from the sun, the moon, and even from the earth itself, and then concentrate all of it into one unbelievably powerful focal point.
And the list of what they use this energy for is just staggering. The sources talk about powering vehicles that could fly through the air and travel under the sea, transmitting voices and images over huge distances, kind of like an organic version of TV and radio. They apparently used it to control the weather, to store information like a massive computer, and, get this, even to heal the human body and allow people to live for hundreds of years. This energy was part of every single aspect of their life. So, how did this whole thing supposedly work? The easiest way to think about it is like a cosmic wireless network. The system started on the ground, with smaller poser crystals set up in a triangle formation all over the land. Then, way up in the sky, a huge crystalline satellite, they called it the second moon, would gather energy from the stars and beam it down. The grid of crystals on the ground would then catch that energy and transmit it wirelessly to every house, every city, every vehicle. Just imagine, an entire civilization running on clean, wireless power. No plugs, no cable.
But you know how these stories go. This paradise, it didn't last. Like any great tragedy, this one has a dark turn. The very same power that built their utopia would end up being the very thing that destroyed it, all because of a deep, bitter division that split their society right down the middle.
So their society broke into two opposing groups. On one side, you had the Law of One. They were the spiritual ones, focused on harmony, led by these benevolent scientist priests. On the other side, you had the Sons of Belial, and they were the complete opposite. Materialistic, greedy, power-hungry. The sources say they even used their advanced knowledge of genetic engineering to create a slave race, and their ultimate goal was just to control the world. It's a classic conflict, right? Spirit versus greed, harmony versus power.
The big turning point came down to some serious political maneuvering and betrayal. The Sons of Belial basically tricked the other side into a deal that put the crystal grid under joint control. Then, in a pretty shocking move, a key council member flipped their allegiance, giving the Sons of Belial the majority. And just like that, the most powerful technology on the planet was now in the hands of the faction that wanted to use it to dominate everyone else.
The end came fast, and it was catastrophic. The Sons of Belial turned that second moon satellite into a weapon of mass destruction, basically a death ray in the sky, and used it to crush their enemies. But the priests of the Law of One had warned them. If you overload the crystal, it's going to fail. Of course, they were ignored. Soon, the satellite's anti-gravity field weakened. It started to wobble. And then, it fell. The impact was apocalyptic. It hit the Earth with the force of a giant comet and literally shattered the tectonic plate. The earthquakes and tsunamis that followed were unimaginable. And in one final, terrible cataclysm, the last islands of Atlantis slipped beneath the waves for good. But did everything truly disappear?
Or is it possible that the survivors, the refugees from this disaster, carried the seeds of their incredible knowledge to other parts of the world, maybe even sparking the rise of the civilizations that we do know about from our history books?
And this is exactly where the story of Atlantis starts to connect with our own recorded history. Proponents of this whole theory suggest that survivors of the catastrophe made their way all over the world, but with one key destination in mind: ancient Egypt.
And the evidence they point to is literally carved in stone. I mean, how did a civilization from what we call the Bronze Age build the Great Pyramids with such insane mathematical precision and align them so perfectly with the stars? Was all of that knowledge developed completely from scratch? Or could it have been an echo, a legacy from a much older, much more advanced civilization?
And then you've got the geological argument, which is really fascinating. Mainstream history says the Sphinx was built around 2500 BCE, but some geologists have looked at the deep vertical weathering on its body and argued that it couldn't have been caused by wind and sand. They say it had to have been caused by thousands of years of heavy rain, a type of rainfall that Egypt hasn't seen for a very, very long time. This geological analysis pushes the date for the Sphinx's creation all the way back to around 10,000 BCE. Right at the end of the last ice age. Now, that date is thousands of years before Egyptian civilization was even supposed to exist, but it lines up almost perfectly with the alleged time frame for the fall of Atlantis.
So all of this really builds to a fundamental clash in how we see our own past. It's a showdown between two completely different interpretations of the evidence we have.
On one side, you've got the argument from our sources, which is that our accepted history is just incomplete. It's this idea that we should stay open to the possibility of lost civilizations and really question the neat, tidy story we've been told. It's basically a call to keep an open mind and keep investigating. But on the other side, you've got the mainstream academic view. And from this perspective, these are just theories of pseudo-archaeology, driven by a desire to find mystery where there isn't any. This view says that the evidence for lost civilizations is often just misinterpreted or maybe even made up out of a kind of desperation to prove a fantastical story. So in the end, we're left with two starkly different stories. One is this epic tale of a forgotten golden age, a super advanced civilization whose legacy secretly shaped our own. The other is the story of human progress that's been built on tangible, verifiable evidence that archaeologists have been carefully piecing together for decades.
And that really leaves us with one final question to think about. Do these incredible stories of lost worlds represent a real, forgotten chapter of human history that's just waiting to be rediscovered? Or are they powerful myths that tell us more about our own modern hopes, our desire for a past that was more magical, more advanced, and more meaningful than they do about what actually happened? The answer for now is still out there.